Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 116 based on novel. So let's start. 5 minutes passed very quickly, and the tournament began with another shout from Chen An. The entire hall went silent, and all the Soul Engineers started to get busy. He Kai-Tu looked at Hu Yuhao. Yuhao, we can skip the next round if we make a class 4 milk bottle. Should we try? Hu Yuhao shook his head and said, follow the plan. We can't catch too much attention. Chen An is an idiot, he made us the center of attention. We can only earn money if we remain low profile. If we are in the spotlight, it's going to be hard to bet. Hu Yuhao didn't unleash his dark golden terror claws this time. He only simply used his right hand to pick up a piece of suitable metal and used the equipment on the table to build the shell of a milk bottle. He wasn't quick, but he was accurate. If someone watching wasn't experienced or skilled enough, he wouldn't be able to tell what Hu Yuhao was doing. He Kai-Tu proceeded with his work just like Hu Yuhao did. The two of them maintained a steady progression as they created their milk bottles. For other soul tools, the outer shell was used for protection and decoration. However, it was different for milk bottles. Every part of a milk bottle was designed to prevent the leakage of soul power, so requirements for making the outer shell were very strict. It had to be fully sealed, and most parts of a milk bottle had to come from one entity. They couldn't be separate parts that were joined together to form an outer shell. The standard crafting table that the Duskwater Alliance provided was of decent quality. There was stamping equipment that could shape soul tools, which helped to expedite the process of creating a milk bottle. Very soon, an outer shell crafted from the Sun Moon Empire's specialty metal, Spirit Magic Bronze, appeared in front of Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao looked at the rest of the busy soul engineers and calmly chose a piece of Sky Spirit silver, which was the most valuable and costly among the 3 types of rare metals. He placed it in front of him and used a cutting-type soul tool to cut 4 square-shaped pieces of the metal. Every piece was around 200 grams in weight, and he placed each of the pieces in front of him. It was complex to create a milk bottle because the requirements for its internal construction were as fine as the requirements for constructing its outer shell. The primary reason was that 2 formation arrays were needed. The first one was an energy-gathering formation array, and the other one was a storage-type formation array. Hu Yuhao cut 4 pieces of the Sky Spirit silver for a reason. He didn't use his dark golden terror claws, but retrieved a standard carving knife to hold one piece of the metal in a slot on the carving table. He could only use one hand, and thus it was a little inconvenient for him if he wanted to conceal his true abilities. No one saw it, but Hu Yuhao's eyes brightened as he lowered his head. The entire structure of the piece of Sky Spirit silver was presented in his spiritual mind. His purple demon eyes had reached their most advanced stage, and he could use his spiritual power to display the finest details in his spiritual world. Hu Yuhao was slightly inferior to He Kai-Tu in terms of creating soul tools. Mainly it was because He Kai-Tu's cultivation was higher. It was also because He Kai-Tu was more focused on specializing in soul tools compared to Hu Yuhao. However, that was only true under one condition: if Hu Yuhao didn't use his spirit eyes. When Fan Yu decided to accept Hu Yuhao as his disciple, he already knew that Yuhao's spirit eyes were an unbelievable martial soul for a soul engineer. It was equally great in terms of creating soul tools or using them. After 2 years of training in the illustrious Virtue Hall, Hu Yuhao was able to fuse his spirit eyes and soul tool creation together. The texture of the Sky Spirit silver was very fine. More importantly, its texture was very uniform even while it was very tough. It wasn't like other metals, which differed slightly in different areas. It was also why Sky Spirit silver was the first choice in creating the formation arrays of lower-level soul tools. Hu Yuhao couldn't even bear to use it to create the formation arrays of the Zhuge Divine crossbow cannon. Hu Yuhao secretly sighed in his heart, and the carving knife in his hand moved. While he could only use his right hand, it was very stable. His thumb and index finger were slightly to the front of the carving knife. He used the first joint of his middle finger to press down on the knife, holding it steadily between his 3 fingers. The bottom of the knife was shaped like a sharp cone. Most carving knives adopted such a structure, which was considered the standard by soul engineers. The blade of the knife moved gently, and he poured his soul power into it. A dim layer of white light appeared on the surface of the blade. One corner of the piece of Sky Spirit silver was cut off. The knife moved in a gentle arc, and an arc-shaped mark was left behind on the piece of Sky Spirit silver. Hu Yuhao's 3 fingers moved slightly and the knife was like a spiritual serpent that surrounded the piece of Sky Spirit silver. It moved up and down, carving off small bits of metal that fell onto the table. They were proportionally spread around the area in which Hu Yuhao was carrying out his work. Quick, accurate and steady. Hu Yuhao didn't seem any different from the rest of the soul engineers, but he captured the essence of a true soul engineer. If there was an advanced level soul engineer watching him, he would be extremely impressed. He Kai-Tu adopted a different method from Hu Yuhao. The knife in Hu Yuhao's hand moved very smoothly, and hardly ever stopped in the process of cutting the Sky Spirit silver. On the other hand, Hikaitu stopped every time he made a cut. It was as if he needed time to think and judge. On a closer look, every pause he made was equally long. Each pause only lasted for an instant. The continuous rhythm made his movements seem even more artistic than Huo Yuhao's. This was a rhythm that only an advanced-level soul engineer could achieve. Every advanced-level soul engineer would come to possess his own rhythm in the process of creating his soul tools. The short pause mustn't be underestimated. Hikaitu wasn't as accurate as Huo Yuhao. He had to rely on his own experience and eyes to make his own judgment and achieve overall control during the process of creating his soul tool. The short pause provided him time to think. Once he attuned to his own rhythm, his spiritual power, soul power, and focus could follow it unerringly. A Class 3 milk bottle was considered quite complex among Class 3 soul tools. Even as Hikaitu tried to suppress his own rhythm, he only used 1 hour to form the 2 formation arrays. The rhythm couldn't be broken. He couldn't help it even if he was too quick. He could only try to delay his progress in assembling the components of his milk bottle. As for Huo Yuhao, he was still carving. However, he was already on his 3rd piece of Sky Spirit Silver. He was very serious at this time. He controlled the details very well, which was a stark contrast to his carefree attitude during the qualifiers. He was here today to show his might, hoping to draw out those that he wanted to and test them. As a soul engineer, Fan Yu had once told him that he had to respect his work. It was only by respecting his own work that his soul tool could have its own spirituality. Hikaitu managed to delay completing his tool for 2 hours. It was only after more than 10 soul engineers had submitted their work that he slowly completed the creation of his milk bottle. Huo Yuhao also started to assemble the final components of his milk bottle at this point. Since he was using one hand, he couldn't be as swift and flexible as when he was using 2 hands. However, he wasn't rushed or slow. He made great use of the carving table to aid himself. Finally, he managed to complete the creation of an exquisite green milk bottle. Huo Yuhao let out a long breath as he lifted his head. He revealed a pleased look on his face. Among all the Class 3 soul tools that he had ever created, he was the most satisfied with this one. He had even completed it with an ordinary carving knife. He had carved it very meticulously, and even used some of the slight changes in the stable Sky Spirit Silver to achieve his goal. Even though it was only a Class 3 soul tool, Huo Yuhao felt that it was something novel. Hikaitu smiled as he asked Huo Yuhao, "Are you done?" "Yes." Huo Yuhao passed his milk bottle over to Hikaitu. There were referees behind everyone. When the referee behind Huo Yuhao saw what he did, he shot him a look of disapproval. However, he acted like nothing had happened because of Chen An. Hikaitu placed the milk bottle that Huo Yuhao had created beside his own milk bottle. Both of them had used the same materials, but Huo Yuhao's milk bottle was slightly longer than his. After he touched Huo Yuhao's milk bottle, he revealed a stunned look on his face. Hikaitu was considered an advanced-level soul engineer. In Shrek Academy, he was one of the best. It was important to note that Fan Yu wasn't a Class 9 soul engineer yet. This meant that Class 8 soul engineers were the strongest in Shrek Academy right now. Of course, Xian Ziwen wasn't included. Xian Ziwen was also a Class 8 soul engineer, but he was different from Fan Yu. He had been the chief researcher of Illustrious Virtue Hall. In terms of his theoretical knowledge and abilities in various areas, he was already at the Class 9 level. It was just that his cultivation wasn't at that standard yet. The higher the class of a soul engineer, the more demanding the requirements on their soul power when creating soul tools. At Huo Yuhao's level, he could create Class 6 soul tools due to the fact that his overall soul power was greater than average due to his twin martial souls. As a result, he was considered a Class 6 soul engineer. Even so, he wouldn't be able to create Class 9 soul tools when he became a Class 8 soul engineer. Without the abilities of a titled Doluor, there was no way he could create Class 9 soul tools. Acting recklessly would only endanger his own life. Xian Ziwen had warned Huo Yuhao more than once that he couldn't overestimate his talents. Many soul engineers had perished at the hands of their own experiments. Huo Yuhao had also become very wary because of that. Hikaitu's first feeling when he grabbed Huo Yuhao's soul tool was balance. It was an indescribable sense of harmony. It was as if this wasn't a soul tool at all, but a piece of metal. Its texture felt very similar to that of solid metal. Every part of the milk bottle gave him the same feeling. The weight and everything else felt like that. This feeling was too miraculous. Hikaitu's milk bottle was much less balanced compared to Huo Yuhao's milk bottle, even it was roughly similar to Huo Yuhao's milk bottle in terms of appearance. Little, second brother, your Class 3 milk bottle isn't a Class 4 soul tool. It's better than a Class 4 soul tool. Hikaitu couldn't help but rave over Huo Yuhao's milk bottle. Huo Yuhao chortled and replied, "I felt very good just now. It seems like the tense atmosphere of this tournament helps me to focus better." There were outsiders around, and thus he naturally couldn't say that it was his first time testing out the spiritual power obtained from his concrete immaterial realm by fusing it into the entire production process. Hikaitu gestured and called for the referees behind them. He passed his and Huo Yuhao's milk bottles to the referees. The two referees held their milk bottles separately and said, "I'll need the two of you to wait. We'll need the chief referee to test your milk bottles out. When he's done, we'll verify the results." Huo Yuhao signaled for them to leave. He and Hikaitu looked at each other and revealed light smiles of confidence. For some reason, Hua Yuhao felt that Hikaitu's eyes were very bright today. It might be because such a soul engineering tournament was what he was truly interested in. Hua Yuhao could even sense the excitement coming from him. Very soon, Chenan walked over. He was holding the milk bottles that Hua Yuhao and Hikaitu had made. He was completely astonished at this moment. He arrived in front of Hua Yuhao and asked softly, "Is this your work?" He handed the milk bottle that Hua Yuhao had made back over to him. Hua Yuhao received his milk bottle and nodded. Chenan took in a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with respect. "It's perfect." His admiration came from the bottom of his heart. He hadn't respected Hua Yuhao the first time he had demonstrated his evil soul powers, he had only feared him. Hua Yuhao smiled and asked, "Have we passed, then?" "Of course." Chenan answered without any hesitation. "After seeing your work today, I'm more and more confident that you'll be able to compete on behalf of the Duskwater Alliance. However, I won't submit your milk bottle. This is a secret of the illustrious Virtue Hall. Surely you didn't install a self-destruction component, right?" Hua Yuhao proudly said, "If I added such a component, it wouldn't be perfect, am I right? I'll give it to you. If you get into trouble because of this in the future, you'll have to handle the responsibility." "You are giving it to me?" Chenan was shocked. Even though he knew it was a Class 3 milk bottle, he had tested it out, and knew that a Class 4 milk bottle was unable to handle the amount of soul power that it could contain. It was able to work like a Class 4 milk bottle with the structure of a Class 3 milk bottle. It was magical. He was even more shocked by the sealed-in system that the milk bottle contained. Yes, Hua Yuhao had created a sealed milk bottle. It was precisely because of this that he had to complete 2 more sealed formation arrays compared to Hikaitu. They even had to be separated by an exact distance. They were installed into the milk bottle using his acute senses, allowing the milk bottle to be completely sealed. Although such a milk bottle was expensive, it wasn't the reason why Chenan was shocked. He was shocked by Hua Yuhao's technique. Hua Yuhao didn't mark the milk bottle or install any self-destruction components. This also meant that he could dismantle this milk bottle to research how Hua Yuhao had managed to create it. To him, this was something that couldn't be bought with money. Hua Yuhao said, "Give us the verification that proves we've advanced to the next round. We are returning." Chenan took in a deep breath. Apart from the admiration in his eyes, there were other emotions as he looked at Hua Yuhao. "I can't thank you enough for your generosity. Don't worry, I'll do anything you want me to." Hua Yuhao waved his hand and said, "Can you get as many rare metals as you can for me? I'm willing to buy them. You should know how soul engineers like us need rare metals. Without sufficient quantities of them, we'll be unable to carry out some experiments. It isn't convenient for us to move around outside either." Yes, I'll help you gather all types of rare metals," Chenan answered without any hesitation. Hua Yuhao lifted his hand and swept the remaining rare metals on the carving table into his Starlight Sapphire storage-type ring. After obtaining the verification from Chenan, Hikaitu pushed Yuhao's wheelchair as they left the stage. Hikaitu didn't stand on ceremony either. He also put the remaining rare metals on the table into his storage-type soul tool. Before leaving the hall, Hua Yuhao also passed on some instructions to Chenan. He only returned to meet Wang Donga and Nana after doing so, before they left the Green Hotel and returned to the Mingyu Hotel. "Little Junior, can we trust that person?" Hikaitu whispered to Hua Yuhao as they were about to reach the Mingyu Hotel. Hua Yuhao smiled and answered, "There shouldn't be any problems in the short term. In his heart, he believes that I'm an important figure in the Holy Ghost Church. I've also given him a lot of benefits. He won't do anything harmful to us before those benefits disappear. By helping us, he'll also stand to gain tremendously. I've already proven that to him today. If you were him, what would you do?" "I believe Chenan is a clever person. Clever people will do clever things. Furthermore, if we take a step back and assume he reports us to the Duskwater Alliance, I'll discover it once danger arises. It'll be convenient for us to escape any problems. There won't be any major obstacles." His body stiffened as he finished speaking. His expression also changed. Wang Donga's gaze was fixed on him. Seeing that his body had stiffened up so suddenly, she hurriedly asked, "Yuhao, what's wrong?" Hua Yuhao laughed bitterly. "I just received a premonition. I suddenly felt very surprised, as if something important was going to happen. Furthermore, it's something that's not good for us." Wang Donga, Hikaitu, and Nana became more alert. They slowed down, and Hua Yuhao also unleashed his spiritual detection as he surveyed their surroundings. He didn't discover anything, and everything seemed very normal. However, the sensation didn't seem to disappear. They didn't discover anything even when they reached their room in the hotel. They weren't subjected to any ambushes, either. Hikaitu couldn't help but ask, "Yuhao, are you being too sensitive?" Hua Yuhao shook his head lightly and replied, "That feeling was very sudden. I don't know what's going on, either. However, my premonitions are very accurate, considering my spiritual power. Everyone, please rest early. Be careful tonight. If there are any changes, we must inform one another according to our arrangement." "All right." Hikaitu and Nana acknowledged his words before returning to their rooms to rest. As if Hikaitu's words were being proven, nothing happened the entire night. The sensation that Hua Yuhao felt also slowly disappeared. He washed his face and ate his breakfast. Even he was doubtful at this point, and muttered to himself, Was I really being too sensitive last night? I don't feel so suppressed anymore. However, I feel like I've forgotten something. Wang Donga smiled and said, it's alright to be wrong occasionally. After all, it wasn't a good thing, either. I wonder who we'll be facing in the round-robin stage. It's the lot drawing ceremony today. Sister Nan Nan and Third Senior have gone for it. I'm sure she won't let Third Senior draw the lot this time. Haha. Hua Yuhao shuddered when he heard the words lot drawing ceremony. He lost his voice as he said, don't tell me my premonition has something to do with the groupings in the round-robin stage. Wang Donga was stunned. Just when she was about to open her mouth, she heard a frantic knocking sound. After the third elimination round, they had been moved to the fourth story of the hotel, and their rooms were bigger now than they were before. There were also more facilities they had been given access to. Who is it? Wang Donga walked over to open the door. Jiang Nannan and Shu Sanxia were standing outside. Wang Donga couldn't help but mutter to herself when she saw the both of them, don't tell me that Yu Hao was spot on. Donga, Jiang Nannan was sobbing, and hugged Wang Donga. I'm sorry. I don't know why it turned out like this. Shu Sanxia was standing to one side and appeared very helpless. It's okay. We can just fight it out. Hua Yuhao pushed his wheelchair over. What's going on? Third Senior, Fourth Senior, how's the situation for our round-robin stage? Shu Sanxia laughed bitterly. Not too good. Hua Yuhao was slightly tense. How bad? Shu Sanxia replied, we are meeting the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy again. In addition, Shrek's official team is also in the same group as us. The tournament's organizing committee must have rigged this. We are even meeting Team Sun Moon in the first fight. This means that we are fighting them for 2 rounds straight. We've already conceded once. What should we do this time? What? Hua Yuhao lost his voice. If there was a team that Hua Yuhao didn't want to face in this tournament, it wasn't Team Sun Moon or the mysterious yet powerful Holy Ghost Sect's team. It was Shrek's team. This had nothing to do with Wang Chua. It was because of Shrek. Elder Xian had given them special permission to compete on behalf of their sect so that they could establish the Tang sect. The duty of protecting Shrek's glory had been passed on to the hands of Wang Chua and the rest. If they met Shrek in the tournament, how were they going to deal with this conundrum? If they personally eliminated Shrek, they would forever feel guilty over it. This was only the round-robin stage, but they were already in the same group as Shrek Academy. This was the worst news they could possibly receive. Jiang Nannan lowered her head. Her eyes were red as she said, I drew the lot today. I didn't expect to be so unlucky, too. I'm sorry, Yu Hao. It's all my fault. After a brief moment of shock, Hua Yuhao calmed down and revealed a reassuring smile on his face. He said, Fourth Senior, don't put it this way. You've drawn a good lot for us. How is it disastrous? I believe it's the best lot that we could have drawn. Jiang Nannan was stunned for a moment before she laughed bitterly. Yu Hao, you don't have to comfort me. Hua Yuhao shook his head and answered, I'm not doing that. I really think so. Think about it. If we're in the same group as Shrek, we can team up with them. According to the rules, we'll never meet before the final. Isn't that the best situation that we could desire? Shu Sanxia was speechless. Brother, did you hear us carefully? We're also in the same group as Sun Moon. We're even facing them first. Hua Yuhao smiled and replied, just get rid of them. The 5 simple words that he uttered left the other 3 in the room stunned. Jiang Nannan's red eyes slowly revealed a determined look. Wang Donga squinted and said, that's right. Let's just get rid of them. We can even pave the path for Shrek. It's best that we meet them first. Let's destroy them. Shu Sanxia gave Hua Yuhao a thumbs up and said, you are awe-inspiring. Hua Yuhao smiled and didn't say anything else. Yes, they could just destroy the Sun Moon team. Did they really have to be scared of them? They conceded defeat in the last round for a tactical reason, but this time, they had to fight. Since this was the case, then they should just give it their all. Why should the Tang sect be afraid of the Sun Moon team? Third Senior, I'll have to trouble you to call everyone here. We'll be competing tomorrow, so we need to discuss our strategy. All right. Shu Sanxia turned around without hesitation and left. In a short span of time, he managed to gather He Kai-tu, Xiao Xiao, and Nana, and even Nan Chocho, Ji Juechen, and Jing Xian. Fortunately, Hua Yuhao's room had been upsized. It wasn't that packed anymore, even with everyone there. Hua Yuhao wore a serious expression and said, we'll be facing a strong opponent tomorrow, thus I'll need to form our strategy today. We must win this fight and try our best to bring them down so that Shrek's team has a chance against them. First, I hope no one tells Eldest Senior that we are facing the Sun Moon team. I don't want him to worry and let him focus on recovering. With his current condition, he can only fight when we reach the quarterfinal. If he worries too much, I'm afraid it might affect his condition. Everyone nodded as they agreed with Hua Yuhao's opinion. Hua Yuhao continued, we have only one goal in the individual elimination round, weaken the abilities of our opponent. For Shrek Academy and the Tang sect, let's not hold back anymore. However, we must also watch our own safety. We only have 7 of us left, not even one substitute. Once we lose a member, we'll find it difficult against them in the later stages even if we win the first fight. Nan Chocho pursed her lips and said, if only I could compete. Hua Yuhao snapped, there's no point in saying that now. Nan Chochio was angry the moment she saw him. Even though she had joined the Tang sect to avoid being punished by her mother, she didn't have a good impression of Hua Yuhao. Hua Yuhao didn't bother with her and said, "The team round will decide which team will eventually win. However, it's very important for us to weaken our opponents in the individual elimination round. We need to arrange the order in which we compete carefully. I'll go first," Jiang Nannan said decisively. She was the one who had drawn the lot, and thus she blamed herself for it. She had even berated Shu Sancha in the last round. Right now, she felt extremely guilt-stricken. "No, Sister Nannan. Have you forgotten what I said? If we fight the Sun Moon team, I'll be the one to go first," Wang Donga said without any hesitation. Jiang Nannan furrowed her brow and retorted, "Donga, this is not the time to be emotional. Your cultivation is higher, so you should among the last few to compete. If you compete first, your energy and power will be greatly depleted. When it comes to the team round, we'll still need to rely on your martial soul fusion skills with Yu Hao." Wang Donga replied, "Fourth senior, listen to me. Choosing to compete first isn't an emotional decision. Xiao and Meng Hongchen are undoubtedly the core of the Sun Moon team. In my opinion, Meng Hongchen's venom is more difficult to deal with, even though Xiao Hongchen's abilities are greater. The venom from her vermilion clear ice toad can greatly deplete one's soul power. Once you are unable to unleash any soul power, you'll be knocked out. Senior Dai Yueheng lost to her back then even though he was so strong. Once Meng Hongchen enters the stage, which one of you are confident of beating her? Only Hua Yuhao's ultimate ice can curb her. However, Hua Yuhao is our main control soul master. Furthermore, he can't overexert his body because of his physical condition. He's also the one we need to achieve victory in the team round. Considering all this, no one is more suitable than me to fight her." Nan Chochio was curious. "Why is that so?" Wang Donga smiled and said, "It's because my fire of light can curb her venom. At the same time, it's also because of some special feelings that she has for me. I'm not trying to exploit her feelings, but at least I know she won't try to kill me. This can tip the balance in my favor. At the same time, Yu Hao can discover her weaknesses even if I lose through his control and detection." Nan Chochio opened her eyes wide and said, She likes you? She's really shameless." Shu Sancha slapped his forehead and shouted, "Chochio, your logic is really good. She's shameless because she likes Wang Dong. Don't you like him too?" Nan Chochio's face turned red, and she turned around, refusing to reply to Shu Sancha. Although she was quite willful, she was a very straightforward person, and said anything she wanted to. Over the past few days, she had slowly integrated into the Tang sect. Hua Yuhao knew that it was time for him to express his opinion. He understood Wang Donga very well. He knew that she had said all that to compete first and handle more of the pressure. Who could be sure that Meng Hongchen would be the first to compete from the Sun Moon team? What if she wasn't the first? Wang Donga would still have to face her opponent, and her opponent might even be Xiao Hongchen. Both parties were archenemies. They couldn't be surprised by any tactics that the Sun Moon team used. All right, Donga will be the first to compete then. Hua Yuhao made his decision. Even though he was gripping the handle of his wheelchair tightly at this point, he still made this difficult decision. They were a single entity. He couldn't leave her behind to fight just because of their relationship. However, Eldest Senior has instructed me to command the entire team in this tournament. Whether it's Donga or anyone else, all of you must listen to my instructions. Whoever I choose to compete will compete, and whoever I choose to remain on the bench will remain on the bench. This is so that we can eventually achieve victory. Whoever doesn't listen to my instructions will not compete anymore. Seniors, Donga, and Nana, I hope all of you understand where I'm coming from. There can only be one voice during the tournament." Hua Yuhao sounded very calm now, but he appeared much more awe-inspiring than he had been before. His eyes were filled with a look of determination. Even He Kai-tu and Shu Sancha, who were both the oldest, were stunned when they saw the look in his eyes. Right now, they were impressed by his aura. He Kai-tu was the first to express his support. He said, "I agree. There can only be one voice during the tournament. I believe Yu Hao will be able to lead us to victory." "Me too," Shu Sancha added without any hesitation. They were brothers, but they were also teammates. If their hearts were not in unison against a strong opponent, they would already have lost half the battle. The rest didn't object either. Hua Yuhao's gaze eventually landed on Wang Donga. Wang Donga looked at his burning gaze before glancing at his immobile left arm and lower limbs and then nodded immediately. She knew that Hua Yuhao would do something crazy if something happened to her because she was being stubborn. He had landed in this state because of her. How could she bear to see him hurt because of her again? Morning. A cool and refreshing air blew through Radiant City under the illumination of the morning sun. It was chilly outside. It was the most comfortable season right now. The weather today was especially good. Inhaling the refreshing air along the streets of Radiant City felt very soothing. The entire city had been bustling with activity over the past few days. Whether it was day or night, the streets were packed with people. The Continental Elite Youth Soul Master Tournament had finally entered the round-robin stage. The confusion and mess from the presence of too many teams had finally ended. In the round-robin stage, more and more strong teams would face off against one another. It was early morning, and a huge crowd had already gathered at the suburbs where the tournament venue was. They were waiting excitedly for the tournament to truly begin. The rules of the round-robin stage weren't as direct as they were in the elimination rounds. The 32 teams that had advanced to the round-robin stage were divided into 4 groups. The 8 teams in each group would face off against each of the rest of the 7 teams once. On the first day, 4 matches would be held in the first 2 groups. On the second day, another 4 matches would be held in the next 2 groups. This would continue until all the matches were completed. The entire round-robin stage would last around 14 days. The top 2 teams from each group would progress to the quarterfinals. The last 8 would compete in the quarterfinals, and the victorious 4 teams would advance to the semifinals. The winners of each semifinal match would then progress to the finals, where the eventual champion would be decided. The Tang Sect, Shrek Academy, and the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy were arranged in the same group. Since the rest of the 5 teams could make it past the elimination rounds, they were naturally skilled too. Their group was the group of death. Furthermore, the Tang Sect and the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy were going to face off in the first match of the round-robin stage. This format isn't very good for us. Meng Hongchen and Xiao Hongchen were walking together to the tournament venue. How is it not good for us? I think it's pretty advantageous for us. Only one of the Tang Sect and Shrek Academy will enter the quarterfinals. Isn't that great? Xiao Hongchen said heartlessly. Meng Hongchen rolled her eyes and said, "This is what you want, but not what they want. Do you really think the Tang Sect will give up this time?" Xiao Hongchen was stunned. Why not? Didn't they do so in the last round? I think it's only wise for them to make the same choice. While the rest of the teams aren't that weak, they shouldn't be our match, either. Isn't it good for them to enter the quarterfinal with us before we meet in the final? Of course, the condition is that either we or them have to beat the Holy Ghost Sect. Come to think of it, we haven't discovered which team is from the Body Sect. Meng Hongchen was a little annoyed as she looked at her elder brother and said, "Elder brother, please grow up. Those people from the Tang Sect come from Shrek Academy. If you were in their shoes, would you be willing to progress with your archenemy, or progress with Shrek Academy by teaming up with them? I don't think they'll give up today. Even if they can't beat us, they'll try their best to deplete our powers. On the contrary, I think we should concede defeat in this match. As long as we beat Shrek's team, we can progress. Compared to the Tang Sect, Shrek is weaker. Concede defeat." Xiao Hongchen opened his eyes wide. "Younger sister, is your brain damaged? Are you asking us to concede defeat to the Tang Sect in front of His Majesty and Grandpa? Not everyone knows about the Tang Sect's background, but Grandpa knows. They might not even choose to fight us. Even if they do, it'll be a great opportunity to exact revenge on them. At most, we'll just reveal our true abilities earlier. Hu Yuhao is crippled right now. If we concede defeat, how can we ever show our face in the Empire again?" "Bro," Meng Hongchen wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Xiao Hongchen. Xiao Hongchen looked much more serious all of a sudden. "Meng, I know that you're smarter than me most of the time. However, do you know why Grandpa made me the team leader instead of you?" Meng Hongchen was stunned. Xiao Hongchen said, "We are competing for glory. At times, it's not good to be overly rational. We need to have a forward-looking spirit. Have you ever thought what the motivational impact would be on the team if we can defeat the Tang Sect? You don't have to say anything else. No matter what, we must never give up on this match." Meng Hongchen sighed and said, "Elder brother, I know what the benefits of winning are. However, if we lose..." "Shut up. Don't you know it's extremely dangerous to undermine our chances before we even fight? I've already made my decision. Since you lack fighting spirit, I shall not let you compete first. You'll be the last. In the individual round, we still can make choices. Our fight with the Tang Sect will be decided in the team round." Meng Hongchen sighed and didn't add anything else. Xiao Hongchen wasn't wrong, either. At times, a determined mindset was more important than rationality. In the previous edition of the tournament, their overall abilities were greater than Shrek Academy's, and they still lost. After they returned, they tried to summarize the reason why they lost, and they came to a conclusion: belief. Shrek's 7 monsters had been inspired to fight for Shrek's glory. Along with Ma Xiaodao and Dai Yuehang's abilities, they eventually defeated the stronger Sun Moon team. Xiao Hongchen was still bothered by that defeat. Over the past 5 years, he had cultivated tirelessly almost every day so that he could avenge his humiliation. He had sacrificed a lot, and no one was clearer about that than Meng Hongchen. That was why she stopped trying to convince him. In her heart, her fighting spirit was also lit. The resting area at the side of the tournament stage had been renovated over the past 2 days, and only the original VIP resting area was left. The resting area was also redecorated, and the original wooden benches were switched to comfortable sofas. After all, there would at most be 8 teams at once in the resting area. It wasn't packed as tightly as before. When Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen brought their team to the tournament venue, they immediately saw the Tang Sect in the resting area. Bei Bei was still absent. The rest of Shrek's 7 monsters were all seated. Hu Yuhao's eyes were shut. It seemed like he was resting his mind, while the rest of them appeared to be very calm. Meng Hongchen even suspected that she was wrong when she saw them. Were they really going to give up this match? At this point, someone from the Tang Sect stood up and walked towards the Sun Moon team. Xiao Hongchen squinted at him and stopped in his tracks. Shu Sanxia was the one who had walked over. He walked in front of Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen and said, "It's been a long time. How are the both of you?" Xiao Hongchen's facial muscles twitched. "It's been a long time. Were you blind over the past few days?" "Yes. Long time no see." Xiao Hongchen revealed a foxy smile on his face. Shu Sanxia sighed and said, "Time passes really quickly. I never expected us to meet 5 years later. In the previous round, we decided to surrender because we understand how tough it must be on the both of you. I wonder if you can return the favor today. It'll be great if we can progress together." Xiao Hongchen snorted. "We are not so spineless." Shu Sanxia looked very sad. "I hope the few people who died back then are resting in peace now. If I can, I'd like go over to pay my respects. It's hard to show mercy during the tournament. We're really not being hostile." Xiao Hongchen was furious, and almost snapped. However, Shu Sanxia had already turned around and left. Meng Hongchen dragged him back. "Don't be fooled. He's trying to provoke you." Xiao Hongchen quickly calmed down. However, his eyes looked very cold, to the point that his expression was almost frightening. "Even if he didn't remind me, I will never forget our vendetta from the previous tournament." The 8 teams who were supposed to compete in the morning had already arrived. Shrek's team was seated beside the Tang sect. Wang Chua was very close to Hua Yuhao, around 3 meters apart. Hua Yuhao's eyes were still shut, and he didn't move in his wheelchair. It was as if he were asleep. Wang Chua had seen him when she first arrived. However, she didn't fix her gaze on him. The cold look on her face was even more intense than before. Her ferocious aura could be felt even if one got slightly close to her. "Hi, Chua." Wang Donga was seated beside Hua Yuhao, and greeted Wang Chua. Wang Chua only nodded at Wang Donga and didn't say anything back. Wang Donga was dressed like a man now, whereas Wang Chua was wearing a veil. It wasn't easy to tell they were identical. Dai Huabin also looked very cold, not much different from Wang Chua. Zhu Lu and Wu Feng were openly hostile towards the Tang sect. Xia Huanyue and Ning Tian were expressionless. On the other hand, Zhu Sikhen and Cao Jinxian were winking at Wang Donga and Xiao Xiao occasionally. The Lan sisters who were substitutes wore smiles on their faces. Up on the main stage, Zhu Zi pushed Shu Tianran over to the main spot. After tidying up his shirt, she sat down beside him. Shu Tianran grabbed her hand and placed it on his thigh. He tapped her hand gently. Zhu Zi smiled, and looked very cute. Shu Tianran smiled as he said, "Today's first match is between the Sun Moon team and the Tang sect. It should be quite interesting." Zhu Zi smiled and asked, "Really? The Sun Moon team will surely win." Shu Tianran twisted his head to look at Jing Hongchen and asked, "Hallmaster Hongchen, what do you think?" Jing Hongchen furrowed his brow as he replied, "I think it's difficult to tell. This is only the round-robin stage. Both parties won't be eliminated even if they lose. It's difficult to tell whether they'll give their best. If they do, it'll also be difficult to tell the outcome. The eventual victory will be decided in the team round. For teams like these two which are very close in terms of abilities, the elimination round is only a way to deplete each other's power and increase their own advantage. It's a way to ensure greater chances for the team round." Shu Tianran smiled and asked, "Hallmaster Jing, have you arranged a strategy for the Sun Moon team?" Jing Hongchen returned the smile and answered, "An eagle's wings will always remain weak if it doesn't learn how to fly on its own. I let them do whatever they want. My grandson and granddaughter have been working hard over the past few years so that they can defeat the bunch from the Tang sect in this tournament. I'm also eager to see what'll go down, even though I hope that they won't need to give it their all at this stage." This video will end here. Thank you for watching.